And it's a special edition of Point Blank. Yes, we'll be looking at so many issues. And of course, President Muhammadu Buhari made a nationwide broadcast a while ago. And this is one way we'll be starting the show this morning. And we'll also be talking about the 2023 elections and everything that's been happening in the country. I have a full house this morning, and we'll be having many other people joining us. Some will be joining us on phone, and some will be joining us online. Quickly permit me to recognize those who are with us live in the studio. And great good morning and congratulations to you, the spokesperson of the Civil Liberties Organization, Mr. Sunny Dada. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians. Happy Independence Day celebration.
All right. I'm surprised you're congratulating Nigerians. It's a bit surprising. And also, in the studio this morning, we are also having the social action, the communication manager of social action, Peter Mazi. Peter Mazi, good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, University. Let me join that in congratulating Nigerians for 62nd anniversary.
Okay, congratulations, Nigeria, and congratulations to you. And we have the journalist in the midst, and I'll be also introducing Mr. Olale Koyige. He's a senior journalist in Rivers State and a veteran writer. Mr. Olale Koyige, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me.
So fantastic. We are discussing so many issues this morning. But again, we will begin from something that is big, and this is one big issue that Nigerians will be talking about right now. That is the speech by President Muhammadu Buhari a while ago, one of the longest by the president, actually. And that speech, a lot of Nigerians are looking at what the president will be saying to Nigeria at this particular moment. And one critical one for me was what he talked about concerning the Academic Staff Union of Universities. And I know that that is also one of the angles a lot of Nigerians will be looking at it from again. We're looking at what is the president going to be saying concerning ASU. Now, in that broadcast, and I'll be taking time to bring back what President Muhammadu Buhari said, will bring back some of his comments. And President Buhari said, and this is, I quote, he said, "I must confess that I am very pained by the recurring disruption to our tertiary education system, and I'm using this Independence Day celebration to reiterate my call for the Striking Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, to return to classroom while assuring them to deal with their contending issues within the limits of the scarce resources available." And he said this administration has made appreciable progress in redressing these issues that have been lingering for over 11 years. Again, a lot of people have said it was time President Muhammadu Buhari played the fatherly role on calling on ASU. Will this speech made by President Muhammadu Buhari just a while ago calling on ASU to return to classroom, is this enough? Would this suit the pain of the striking members of ASU? And will ASU, led by Professor Sadake, listen to this call made by President Muhammadu Buhari in the spirit of Nigeria's independence and return to classroom? I just want us to start from there, gentlemen. Maybe I should start with Olale Koyige, because you have been speaking so much about this issue.
Well, I think while I sympathize with what ASU stands for and what they've been doing, I think this is the right time for ASU to call off the strike. It's lingered on for too long, since February. We're in October already. And I think that ASU should also be patriotic enough. I'm not saying they do not have right to fight for what they think is right for the tertiary education in Nigeria, especially the university. But I think they need to bring some sense of patriotism into this. I have a daughter who was just admitted into the University of Port Harcourt. She had barely done 2 months in school and was about writing her exam. And I think her exam was to start on the 14th of February or so. And ASU went on strike. And since that time, my daughter has been at home. And this is the 8th month on. So I think there's a point in time that ASU will have to look at all of this. Just about 2-3 days ago, Femi Gbajabiamila, who is the Speaker of House of Reps, sat down with the lecturers, and I listened to how genuinely Gbajabiamila appealed to the lecturers and said, "Look, gentlemen, I think we've done enough. Let's just call this off. Then continue this negotiation. Let's find a way out of this so that we don't just keep these children at home unnecessarily." And of course, the issue at stake are just 2 key issues, I think, has been at stake in the last couple of, should I say, days now. One is the issue of IPPIS or UTAS as proposed by the striking lecturers, and secondly, whether they should be paid for all the months they've stayed at home or not. I think these are two contending issues, and I think ASU can rise above this. Should I say, as a faith of patriotism, and say, look, with this president's address, with the leadership of the House of Representatives appealing to us, I think we can just call off the strike. Remember, there's also a court judgment that says, look, lecturers should resume, although they are trying to appeal that. So you look at the momentum and you think that ASU should say, look, gentlemen, we've done enough. Let's call off this strike. While we return our children to school, then let us continue negotiation with the federal government.
But again, a lot of people will think the President and Commander-in-Chief of Nigeria Armed Forces will use today's occasion to make a categorical statement concerning the issue of Academic Staff Union of University. Now, if you look at what the President said in the Independent Day broadcast, again, there's no promise. I mean, if I look at the second paragraph, it said, federal government will continue to mobilize resources, both internationally and nationally, towards funding education to ensure that our citizens are well educated and skilled in various vocations in view of the fact that education is a leading determinant of economic growth and employment generation. Again, there's no concrete promises to ASU. ASU wants something, they want directive. This is the commanding officer. This is the #1 citizen, of Nigeria. What do you say to that, Sani Dada?
First, excuse me. First, I want to say that I am highly disappointed. I was actually looking out for some categorical statements, like you said, but the president deploying the usual strategy of emotional blackmail, against striking lecturers has not worked and will not work. And the reason is because ASU is a union of intellectuals, and if they believe in a thing, they fight for it. This is not about President Buhari. ASU has been consistent over the years, even during military administrations. You see them stand their ground. And we must credit ASU for a lot of things, a lot of new innovations within the university, the tertiary institutions, because a lot of things we see today are there as a result of the fight by ASU. Number one, we must, excuse me, if we're asking ASU to be patriotic or to make contributions, we should also expect the same thing from the politicians. As a matter of fact, it is my thinking, or it is my conclusion, that the president has not demonstrated enough will to address this matter. I listened to President Goodluck Jonathan last month when he told a gathering of how he resolved the ASU crisis. He said his officials did everything they could within their powers. They couldn't resolve the issues until one night he invited ASU, into a closed-door meeting. And in that meeting, all officials of government, all relevant agencies and ministries were present. And he said they held a meeting from the night till the following morning. And by the morning, ASU went back to the classroom. So what I'm saying is that President Muhammadu Buhari should be patriotic enough. He should call the striking lecturers to a roundtable and hear from them directly as a father. One of the indicators to show you that government does not have the will to resolve this issue is, number one indicator is when ASU was, deeply involved in the strike, the Minister for Education for State doled out 100 million naira to buy a presidential aspirant form, presidential form to contest for the, the APC primaries.
APC primaries.
Then, within that same period, we saw government officials, flaunting pictures of their students, of their children graduating from foreign universities.
Yes.
Even recently, the First Lady, posted online the picture of her daughter graduating from a university. That's been insensitive to the issues. If you're asking us to be patriotic enough to return to the classrooms, then you should also be sensitive. This government said there is no money. But when aviation workers threaten to go on strike, when airlines threaten to withdraw their services from Nigeria, immediately government coughed out money, because that sector affected all of them as politicians, because, they can't travel by road, they have to travel by air. So because it affected them, immediately money came from nowhere. So what we are saying is that we must prioritize education. We must stop paying lip service to education. So if the president wants ASUU to go back to the classroom, he should invite them, let them have a roundtable meeting, so that directly he will look at the issues and respond to them, drastically. My worry is that his tenure is almost coming to an end. So I am thinking that the government is foot dragging, and they want to ensure that they drag this whole issue until 29th of May 2023, so that at the end of the day, they will shift the burden to the incoming government. But is that the best? Is that how he wants posterity to remember him? I don't think that's the best.
And I think that would really be sad. But again, let me come to you. I know Olaleko Ige still want to say something. Let me come to Peter Mazi, who is the Communication Manager, Social Action. Now, looking at what President Muhammadu Buhari said concerning ASUU a while ago in his broadcast to Nigerians on the occasion of the 62nd independent anniversary, does this really show that federal government is really desirous, sincerely desirous to resolve this issue?
In my thinking, I think not. Because you don't resolve issues of this magnitude by appealing. There was a negotiation that was entered into before now, and ASUU from their point are saying we have come this far. Let us agree in a round table, and then look at the issues that can be implemented immediately, and those perhaps that will be taken further for another negotiation time. But you come to a day as this, we expect to make commitments, statements that are more pragmatic than appeal. And so appeal, like they've had how many months now? 8 months now in negotiation. You don't end the negotiation with an appeal. We are hoping that, in fact, the last time, the first time the vice chancellors met, they had said that it is only one person that can resolve this issue, and that is the president. And so if he had the will to call these lecturers and have a meeting with them and make commitments, and we say commitment because, you see, some of the things that it has lingered this far because over time, we've had government make statements, and people make promises, and have still reneged in those promises. That is why, as we're saying, well, you've said this before, and you are not, you've not come through with your promises. That's why we are at the point we are today. So we want to see not just what we will do, but how those things will be implemented. So the issues like IPPIS and the UTAS, which is also contentious issues here. As I've said, look, even this IPPIS that you said is not foolproof, because in it we've seen so much money, billions of naira being stolen from the system. And of course, the environment that they operate in does not allow the kind of system that IPPIS work in. They have grants for research. You go on a sabbatical and all this are not captured very well in IPPIS. So these are the things that they should look also at. I think there is a clash of wits also within the federal government and the agencies and ASUU. And I think those things have to be very first. But what we want are what will be met and how those things will be implemented so that this agreement will be met. I don't think that an appeal will solve this issue. And I don't think the federal government has shown enough will to resolve it.
Well, fantastic. Now, again, if you just tune in, you're listening to Point Blank coming to you from Super 93.3 FM Port Harcourt. And it's a special Independence Day celebration edition. And again, marking Nigeria's 62nd independent anniversary. I have great guys in the studio. I have members from the CLO, from the Civil Liberties Organization. The spokesperson of the Civil Liberties Organization, Sunny Dada, is joining us. He's the PRO. And Olaleko Ige is a senior journalist in River State and a prolific public speaker. He's also with us in the studio. Peter Mazi is of the Social Action, is with us in the studio. And also we'll be joined by Dr. Joseph Ekang, all the way from Abuja, who is of the Stakeholders Democracy Network. He'll be joining us a short while. Now, we're beginning from the speech by President Muhammadu Buhari this morning, and we're looking at what the president said concerning the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of University. President Muhammadu Buhari in the broadcast this morning said at the inception of this administration in 2015, I provided, well, actually, that's for another category. But again, President Muhammad Buhari, in the speech this morning, said he is pained at the continued strike of the Academic Staff Union of Universities and is calling on Academic Staff Union of Universities to return to the classroom. He said, I must confess that I am very pained by the recurring disruption in our tertiary education system. And I'm using this Independence Day celebration to reiterate my call for the striking Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU to return to the classroom while assuring them to deal with their contending issues with the limits of the scarce resources available. The president went further to say this administration has made appreciable progress in redressing these issues that have been lingering for over 11 years. And said federal government will continue to mobilize resources both internationally and nationally towards funding education to ensure that our citizens are well educated and skilled in various vocations in view of the fact that education is a leading determinant of economic growth and employment generation. Again, we are asking the question, is federal government, that comment made by President Muhammad Buhari, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, is it reassuring enough? And again, when the president said this administration has made appreciable progress in redressing issues that have been lingering for over 11 years, what exactly is the president talking about? Now, we'll throw up on the telephone line. We have members of the public join us, but first we're speaking to our friends in the studio here who are joining us to speak to us. Maybe we'll just go straight to Abuja and allow Dr. Joseph Ekong to also contribute to this discussion going on right now. Dr. Joseph Ekong, thank you so much for joining us. Well, I think we have some issues there with Dr. Joseph Ekong. We come back to his contribution all the way from Abuja. But again, let me come back to the studio before we take the calls, and let me take on to Sunny Dada again. Okay, we seem to have Dr. Joseph Ekong joining us. Dr. Joseph Ekong, thank you so much for joining us. Can you hear me, Dr. Joseph? All right, let me come back to CLO. CLO, let's go back again. When President Muhammad Buhari said, within the limits of the scarce resources available, the administration has made appreciable progress in redressing issues that have been lingering for 11 years. What do you think the president was talking about here?
Well, I think we also need to tell the president, excuse me, to stop being ambiguous. From experience in watching or listening to politicians, you understand that if they don't have the fact, they like to be ambiguous, you know, just to escape from being escape the scrutiny of citizens. So I don't know. Maybe the president has to come out more plain. But if he is speaking to his campaign promises, if he is speaking to the core issues that are bedeviling, excuse me, the both political and economic system, I think we know the issues, and being ambiguous will not help him to escape. For instance, his major campaign points are insecurity, economy, and fighting corruption. We know how these things have gone. I know we are going to analyze them, you know, one by one. But the last 11 years, what does it mean? You know, if he has been in office for the last 7 years, so if he says the last 11 years, is he also adding the efforts by the last administration? You know, I know that over time we are going to be hearing from the candidates, from the political parties, and I'm particularly interested in what the APC will be campaigning with. I'm watching out for the manifesto so that from there will also help to understand the input or the effort this administration has made, because I know that they will be campaigning with some of the achievements of this administration. So maybe from there we'll also understand some of these ambiguous statements. It is not just President Buhari that is making ambiguous statements. Officials of government, you know, of this administration have made several ambiguous statements. When you expect them to speak clearly on critical issues, you know, they come out and speak ambiguously and go, and they get away with it. And that's because over time, citizens don't interrogate, you know, their public utterances, their public statements. And that is why most times it has become a strategy. When they don't have clear answers to the issues, they come and speak in ambiguous terms and they go. But that's why I like what we are doing this morning, because what we are doing right now is to interrogate the speech.
Yeah.
So that we help citizens to clearly understand what the speech is all about. And the areas that we also do not understand, we call on them to come back and give explanation.
Well, definitely we'll be getting across to some of those in the authority. But again, one critical aspect, Olalekan, for me, in the speech by federal government is when President Muhammadu Buhari, in that particular speech this morning, said federal government will continue to mobilize resources, both internationally and nationally, towards funding education. Again, what are we looking at?
I think, Shegu, I think we need to, what I'm saying so is because, ASU strike is not new.
But of course, but again,
it's not new. No, I'm coming. Now, I left university in 1995. I was gained admission in 1989 and left in 1995. So that gives you an idea that I spent 6 years in the university, of course, contributed largely by strikes, by ASU and all of Abacha must go then. So you begin to understand that, look, I think we have just been repeating the same old thing. The best way to go forward is, can we have a national convergence, on education? Should we continue to see education as a social service? Should we continue to see tertiary education as a social service in Nigeria? I'm sure one of the things ASU had also lobbied for, in time past is for universities to have autonomy. And when people say autonomy, what does it mean? It means that university education may just be out of the reach of, of a lot of Nigerians. Some have also argued that, look, it's not compulsory that all of us should have university education. That after all, when you go to Sena climbs that we always refer to, university education is not cheap for anybody. These are conversations we need to have. We need to have something, maybe a national convergence on education. How do we want to treat tertiary education? If we can make primary and secondary school compulsory and mandatory, should we continue to see tertiary education as social service? Because Sonny was talking about promises made by for the federal government, to make promises, guaranteed promises to us. Remember, it is the promises made by previous federal government that has led us to where we are. Government seem to know how to make promises, but fulfill the promise has always been the problem. And remember, most of the agreements also is talking about now emanated for probably 10, 11 years ago when they had a meeting with President Goodluck Jonathan. He did say that matter was resolved overnight because everybody sat together. Agreements were reached. Has it been implemented? 11 years later, we are still talking about the same thing. So I think because we've done this over and over again, do we now need to have a national convergence on tertiary education? Should we now let universities actually administer, themselves and be able to charge appropriate fees to undergraduates in the university? I think that's one thing we need to find going forward. Otherwise, after this ASU strike, we'll still have another strike going forward because I'm sure some issues will be agreed now. Will it be implemented before the president leaves office in May 29th, 2023? Is that what will happen? Then when the new administration comes in again, they will start another thing and say, look, we had agreement with President Goodluck Jonathan, we had President Muhammadu Buhari, now we want to start another round of strike. I think it's important now that we now sit down and determine what tertiary education should be.
Well, fantastic. We'll talk more about that. And I know that the president also talked about a whole lot of issues. Actually, the president's speech this morning covered a whole lot of area from oil and gas to security, to education, and even the welfare of Nigerians. But again, the critical question we are asking this morning is what President Muhammadu Buhari said in the Independence Day speech this morning. Is it strong enough to make us to return to the classroom? And that's the critical question. And if you're joining us, you're listening to Point Blank. It's a special Independence Day edition. So much to talk about this morning. And we're beginning with a speech of President Muhammadu Buhari just a while ago. And the President Muhammadu Buhari has made a statement concerning the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. And the president said he is pained by the recurring disruption in the tertiary education system, and is using the Independence Day celebration to reiterate his call on the striking members of ASU to return to the classroom. Again, we are asking the question, is that call strong enough to make ASU return to the classroom? We just throw open the telephone lines for a couple of numbers, a couple of calls to come in, and the numbers to call 07050791021 and 0811743101. And of course, you can also join us on our WhatsApp page. Send us a comment on our WhatsApp page. The WhatsApp number is 09059481021. Don't forget, we're live on Facebook, and the Facebook page is Super FM PH on Facebook. We're live. You can join us and send in your contribution on Facebook as well as on Twitter. We'll take 4 calls, and please, we'll advise you make it very short, and I'll come back to the guest in the studio. Hello, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Point Blank. Hello, good morning. Good morning, can you hear us?
The aspect of the issue, which I think is my most interested part, I think the ASU itself is not being sincere to the Nigerian populace and even in the negotiation. Amidst we are confined of their pain, but let us narrow it down to the everyday life. Do you suggest to your Oga how you want your pay to be paid, or you negotiate with your Oga how we should be paid as we do our work? The youths they are struggling for, there's a lot of fraudulent docs in that document, which they will not tell us. My concern mostly is this. Yes, you are fighting for your interest. You shut down the academic process. What is your say concerning the students you are graduating? It's not part of the youth. It's not part of their struggle. So they are so selfish to themselves. If I was President Muhammadu Buhari, I would invoke a presidential fiat.
Okay.
If you don't go to work, you go home. There are a lot of people who are ready to teach. I'm telling you. And I'm with this band the ASU, because indeed they have overstayed their purpose, Mr. Zion.
Well, Mr. Zion, thank you so much for your contribution, and that looks a very tough one. Thank God President Muhammadu Buhari did not invoke that particular aspect. But again, let me take this one. Hello, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Point Blank.
My name is Akanto. I'm calling from Borobo.
Akanto, good morning.
Good morning, Dada. Good morning, my senior friend and brother, Olali Koinde.
Yeah, good morning.
Well, my only was is not to appeal to President to invoke the fiat against the.
Akanto, please, could you just speak up a little bit?
Yes, my only is not to support any fiat by the Mr. President on the university lecturer. Well, you know, Sheikh, there was an order, or there was a memo from the federal government directed the lecturer to return back to class. That same day, there was another memo to discontinue staff adjournment order, and to say that federal government are ready for negotiation. But the statement, I still listen to the Mr. President.
Well, I think we have problem with that line by Akanto, and Akanto, we apologize. If you could just call us back, we would appreciate. But again, the numbers to call 07050791021, and we'll take this. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Point Blank.
Good morning, Mr. Shego Rabi.
Thank you for joining us.
I greet your guests in the studio. Happy Independence Day to all of us.
And same to you. Thank you.
My name is Royal Chief Ambassador Marcus Ido. I'm calling you from Kwawa community.
Good.
I came listen to the speech of our dear President, Mr. Muhammadu Buhari, but I was expecting that the President would have given a directive order to ASU. A directive order in the sense that when I was expecting him to fire the Minister of Education, because it is the Minister of Education that will have done much in resolving this crisis the ASU is having with the federal government. Over the years, you'll be hearing about ASU strike, Buhari is also trying to push it away from his administration. He's referring back 11 years ago. He's referring back 11 years in his own administration. And we all know that his administration is up to 7 to 8 years now. So I was expecting him to give a directive statement. The Minister of Education, the Minister of Education, go tomorrow on Monday, on Tuesday when school resumes. Every necessary thing should be done, and our children should go back to school. But he's telling us, giving us hope, and he knows that he's in the electoral period. We Nigerians want to see change that he promised us. So to me, the speech concerning education, I'm not comfortable with it.
Okay.
And again, Mr. Shegun, concerning agriculture, I was expecting our president to talk about the agricultural sector, which is we are having agricultural scarcity.
Well, actually, President Muhammad Buhari said a lot of things. If you've listened to that speech, you will realize that the broadcast touched almost every facet of Nigeria. But again, we will come to that. We'll be looking at all of that. But thank you so much for that contribution you've made so much. And let me just take this one. Hello, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Pastor Shegun.
Good morning, sir.
My name is Otiasa Christian Livingston.
Good morning, sir.
Let me greet your very respected guest in the studio. Pastor Shegun, our people have an adage that says in Kalabari land that excess of salt water will make the food salty, even when salt has not been applied. Now, first, I want to give support to Olalekan's position that a summit should be held for education, and not just for education, but the other areas. Now, why do I start with that adage? I think that Buhari was not ambiguous in his statement, because he's discussing with people, and by his frugal nature in terms of words, he will not want to bring out every details of what they have discussed that is still pending, for which agreement has not been reached to the public. It is only when it comes to that, he will give you his own account of that. Now, your other guest was saying Jonathan resolved this matter overnight. He resolved no matter. He compounded problems for the incoming administration.
Okay.
He signed agreements that were not in any way practically implementable. So by the time we hold this summit, you will understand that what are the transparency even in this university system. You will believe that I don't want to be specific. Most of the programs run in the universities, in the federal universities, that heavy amount has been charged and paid by students. The money does not accrue to the federal government. And that is why whenever there is issues about it, the ASU, together with the school management, will have a way of circumventing it. These are some of the critical issues that are not exposed to them. Now, the reason why they should appeal, they should heed to his appeal is this. Wrongly or rightly, the judgment of the industrial court is against them. This is law. If we begin to disobey law, we will go into anarchy. Number two, the strike also affects the informal sector of our economy, the economy that is ailing already on life support. The transporters are involved. Those who cook around there, who render sundry services that makes up the informal economy, are involved. And this thing critically, again, affects the entire economy. So I think they should go to the classroom. People are going to crime. The issues are being resolved progressively. And let us even look at the global economic incidences that have affected our economy. That not for some frugal nature of this present administration. We'll probably go into something else. We'll probably go into something. Look at our oil production since it came till now. It has done. Yes, there are all problems of the faults of the government, but you kill the entire sector because of one or two problems. Okay. Nigerians will begin to appreciate. Nigerians begin to appreciate that they are resolving. And why I support the summit is that Nigerians should come to the bravely come to the discussion whether bicameral legislation is still useful for Nigeria at this critical time. For me, I think the Senate should be dissolved, and the monthly amount that accrues to the Senate should be invested in education. If you allow for some level of or complete level of independence of the Nigerian universities, many persons will not be able to go to school. And while I know that the university system is for the standard stuffs, there are stuffs whose parents cannot afford it. Standard stuffs by brilliance, but their parents cannot afford it. Okay. You will see that they will not also be able in other areas.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chair, sir.
I don't want
so
to
much to talk about.
Thank you. But
so much to talk about. But gentlemen,
thank you.
Again, I want to appreciate all our guests in the studio, and I want to thank you so much for staying with us. CLO spokesperson and PRO Sunny Dada, thank you so much for coming. Olalekan Iga, senior journalist in River State, and thank you so much for joining us. And Peter Mauzi, communication manager, social action, thank you so much for joining us. And also, we're being joined right now by Professor Ken Nweke. Professor Ken Nweke is a professor of politics at the Ignatius Ajuru University. Professor Ken Nweke, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shegun, and good morning, Nigerians.
Fantastic, Prof. Again, we're looking at the Independence Day speech of President Muhammadu Buhari. This is a very critical speech for Nigerians, particularly as the country celebrates 62nd independence anniversary. But in the face of everything, we are looking at how reassuring has that speech been. We've just been looking at the issue relating to the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. And again, that comment made by President Muhammadu Buhari, is it strong enough to make ASU return to the university?
Well, let me begin by saying that, yes, it's strong enough, it's reassuring enough within the available resources that he made that statement. So if you look at it, like I've always said too, that while ASU may be right in making its demand, but it ought to be very, very circumspect, in making those demands. ASU must also understand the peculiarities of the country as it is, not to give excuses for the government of the day for the failure that we have in all sides speaking. But again, it must be done within the available resources the country as it is right now. A country that is servicing or that is having a debt to the, to the tune of over 3 trillion, in terms of deficit. It's something in terms of debts, that we have accumulated as a country. You don't even need to mention it. And on a daily basis, it's rising. So even when you have a statistics that you want to dole out today, it may be wrong, because as you're doing that, it's multiplying. And so, within the available resources, ASU should be able to sit down, with the federal government and understand, and probably go into an agreement, a concrete agreement, of course, of phasing whatever implementation, so that between so time and so time, we should be looking at this. Between so time and so time, we should be looking at this. And then let that commitment be a commitment for government of Nigeria, not the government of Muhammadu Buhari, so that when he leaves office, another government will say, "Oh, we don't buy into what he has signed." I think that's where we are today. And so for me, Mr. President, ordinarily is reassuring, but if you want to say it's reassuring after 7 months, that kind of, it is something very disappointing that is even coming so late. Even if I would say, yes, it appears to be reassuring, but it is coming barely too late for a government that has election to prosecute in the next few months. And so again, when we look at where we are today as a country, and it's the same address, I'm sure, that Mr. President read when he took over power in 1983.
Prof, I don't agree with you on that.
No, hang on. The only thing that may have happened will be to update the thing, talking about empowerment, how many people they want to take away from poverty and all that, and a few other things about us. Otherwise, Shegun, is the same address that Nigerian presidents have read since 1960, and they only, update them with the current realities. It's the same thing.
Okay, Prof, I just wanted to stay on that, because you see, again, you have said something very critical, and that is actually the aspect we're coming to, and we appreciate you, Professor Ken Nweke, and we want you to stay with us, and also gentlemen in the studio. Again, another thing that President Muhammadu Buhari said in that broadcast this morning, which is also something of interest that a lot of Nigerians will be looking at in the coming days. President Muhammadu Buhari said, and I quote, he said, "I am pleased to inform my fellow citizens that beside our emphasis on infrastructural development with its intended opportunities for job creation, employment generation, and subsequent poverty reduction, our focused intervention directly to Nigerians through the National Social Investment Program is also yielding benefits. President Muhammadu Buhari further said, there is hardly any ward, village, or local government in Nigeria today that has not benefited from one of the following. 1. N-Power, trade money, market money, subsidized loan, business grant, or conditional cash transfer. This is very important because President said no word. Well, Olalekan, I don't know about your word.
No, but
this is because the president said there is no ward in the country, and he said there's no local government, there's no village in the country that has not benefited from this social investment program, which is aimed at poverty reduction. How true is that? How empirical is that categorical statement made by President Muhammadu Buhari?
Sure, I can say I'm a beneficiary. I benefited from the NISA loan for COVID-19.
Oh,
so
congratulations!
You can mention.
Congratulations!
So you can mention my ward, you can mention my local government.
Congratulations!
And you can mention Ekiti State. So you can say, look, at least truly, I benefited from the NISA fund during the COVID-19, and I got money in 7 digits. So that gives you an idea. The president may just be right. Three of my relatives benefited.
But again,
from
the question
N-Power.
is, when President Muhammadu Buhari is talking about this, how many people actually know that some of these facilities exist and how to benefit from them? That's another critical
Look at the
thing.
issue of N-Power, Shegun. A lot of people are aware of N-Power. Three of my relatives benefited from N-Power for almost 1 year. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for any other person.
Well, okay.
So I'm a beneficiary.
Okay.
I have relatives who have benefited, and I'm sure the president may just be right. Maybe not necessarily in terms of 774 local government, over 8,000 wards that we have in Nigeria, but he could be speaking probably from the point of majority and say, look, if we check the number of core members, the number of youths, the number of women, and all of that, it may just be right, just may be right.
Well, that's
so
quite interesting. But again, let me come to Sonny then. I mean, you are with the Civil Liberties Organization and you relate more with the people. So when President Muhammadu Buhari said here that there is hardly any ward, any local government or village that have not benefited from any of these empowerment programs, how correct is the president?
Well, I will excuse the president on this, not because he's right, but because it is what his handlers have told him. And if you have a very critical president, most times it is not everything your handlers come with that you just swallow. So based on that, I'm going to excuse the president. But dealing with it from the point of fact, I want to tell you that the president was not correct in that speech. N-Power is popular, I admit. N-Power is popular. I am aware of a lot of youths around me in Port Harcourt here that got that N-Power job. But trader money, Shegun, you know the challenges with trader money. Mm-hmm. Trader money, we in the civil society tag trader money as vote buying. And a lot of statistics are out there, open statistics, that actually showed that trader money was directed at certain sympathizers of a certain political party. So that's trader, vote buying, indirect vote buying. Mm-hmm. So let's not go there. But making categorical statements in terms of reaching all the wards and units in Nigeria, the president went too far. And that's the difference between when a president in Africa speaks and a president in saner climes like Europe and all that. Because when these two people speak, one shows you the facts. Mm-hmm. Here in our climb, when a president or a governor is speaking, they make categorical statements without showing you corresponding facts. So I'm just going to excuse him because we have seen over time in the last 7 years mm-hmm. that the president believes so much in the people around him. And so whatever they give to him, he just, swallows it like learn and sinker. So I would just excuse him for that.
Okay, fantastic. Again, we're going to throw open this question again before I come to Professor Ken Wike and also to Peter Mazi here in the studio. We would ask, if you're listening to us right now, President Muhammadu Buhari has said there is hardly any ward, village, or local government in Nigeria today that has not benefited from one of the following: N-Power, trader money, market money, subsidized loans, business grant, or conditional cash transfer. Tell us, have you benefited from any of these empowerment schemes put in place by federal government? Now, again, you can join us. Don't forget, you can join us on Facebook, Super FM, on Super 93.3 FM. Send us a comment on Facebook. On Twitter, it is Super FM PH. We'd like to hear from you. On Instagram, it is Super FM 93.3. And on YouTube, it is Super FM PH. While on Twitch, it is Super FM PH. Again, send us your comment. Have you benefited from any of this scheme? National social investment programs put in place by the federal government. If you benefited from N-Power, from trader money, market money, subsidized loan, business grant, or conditional grant, perhaps you've even heard of them or you know about them. Let's hear your comment on Facebook, Super 93.3 FM. Super 93.3 FM, on Twitter, Super FM PH, on Instagram, Super FM 93.3, on YouTube, Super FM PH, and on Twitch, Super FM PH. Now, let me come back to Professor Kenweke. Again, Professor Kenweke, talking about removing poverty. Nigeria is one of the poorest nations, and we have one of the highest number of young people who do not have jobs. When President Muhammadu Buhari is making a categorical statement like this, how factual is the president?
Well, if you talk about N-Power and all that, a lot of people benefited, Shegun. Let us, that there's no politics about that, across those who didn't even have anybody, and all that, all benefited. They are all living, and for me, I'm a living witness. I'm not part of it, but there are those who are around me who I have seen, that survived over time with that N-Power and all that. Some were in the school teaching, and all that were being paid for a long time. Money market women thing, all those small schemes and all that, children being fed and all that. Yeah, in schools and all, a lot of monies, yes. Those ones, the only thing I thought was the other ones that were being feeding, a school feeding program and all that, where they spend so much money, humongous amounts that probably you could not understand where those monies were going, So I even understand that a lot of people need to be fed and all that. But yes, you need to be fed, but you don't need to be, after being fed, then you go and sit on the floor or bare floor to learn and all that. So what have you been able to achieve? And so it is not also about the federal government here, it's about the state government, it's about the local government. So what have they been able to do? For me, yes, Mr. President, a number of empowerment programs that he has been able to roll out and all that, yes. But again, how have those been able to address, poverty that is written in capital letter on the faces of Nigerians? And as I still speak to you as a public servant that I earn salary every month, I still have those who call me around the places and also say, look, my children need to pay school fees. I need to do this, even if, I've been struggling to also do mine. And I'm also sure that those who are in the studio also feel the same that I'm talking about. And so, including Shegun, yourself. And so, a lot here. And so, if these things have translated into improvement in the quality of life of the citizens, into a creation of wealth in the hands of more Nigerians, then we would have had less number of persons, placing demands on little boys like us who have nothing much to show. And so,
Prof, again.
Yeah. Yes.
Prof, you can.
So for me, you see, yes, Mr. President has said that he has done it, like I say, that yes. So if what Mr. President has said, the federal government has done over time within this period under, if all the state governments have also done the same, the local government have done the same, all of them will at least, address, the poverty that is written in capital letter on the faces of Nigeria. But again, how were these programs run? Were they some of them politicized, but like I said, so some of them that I observed were not politicized, even ran across parties. In fact, you never will know. In fact, maybe major beneficiaries may even be opposition parties and all that. And yet, these things trickled down. But again, because the level of poverty is so much in the country, and so addressing this may be just, or what the federal government has done so far is merely scratching on the back of the so-called poverty, and it's not be able to change the lots of the poverty that we have in the country. And so comparatively, you find that poverty, more Nigerians are going down on a daily basis than we think, because we have more Nigerians all over the country that have no jobs at all. Again, when you give people this kind of money, there are people who are hungry, and they give them access to this money. They'll just go use the money and eat. So they are not able to utilize this money to make more money. And so as soon as that thing ended, they went back to square one. So that means that even on the statistics, you will now begin to still find that there has not been any significant improvement, to show that the government has done this. And so, but if there's a collectivity in doing this at all levels of government, then we will not begin to, without looking at faces of people here. And I'm not sure that the state governments across Nigeria, whether APC or PDP, can be as transparent as federal government, in doing this empowerment program. Because even in their state, you can't see APC state, doing that kind of empowerment without looking at their members or PDP.
Fantastic, Prof.
Yes, so, but I think that, yes, Mr. President, in saying that, has done so much, but because of the level of poverty that we have in this country, it appears that what the government has done over time has not been able to address squarely the issues of poverty.
Well, thank you so much. And Professor Kenny Wike, we still want you to stay with us because we'll be talking more about this. Now, if you just tune in, you're listening to Point Blank, and it's a special Independence Day edition. Nigeria is celebrating 62nd Independence anniversary, and congratulations to Nigeria and Nigerians. And the occasion of this special Independence Day celebration, we are looking at the broadcast made earlier today by President Muhammadu Buhari. President Muhammadu Buhari has outlined some of the efforts of his government in addressing critical issues affecting the country. And one of the issues we've looked at is the issue relating to the Academic Staff Union of University and the plea by President Muhammadu Buhari to the striking members of ASU to return to the classroom, while he said federal government will continue to look at the issues raised by ASU. And again, we're looking at the comment made by President Muhammadu Buhari on efforts made by federal government in addressing poverty in Nigeria. And President Muhammadu Buhari, in his speech this morning, said there is hardly any ward, village, or local government in Nigeria today that has not benefited from one of the followings: Empower, trade money, market money, subsidized loans, business grants, or conditional cash transfer. And we're asking, how factual is President Muhammadu Buhari in that declaration? And we're asking you to tell us, have you benefited in any of those schemes mentioned by President Muhammadu Buhari? I'm Peter Mazi, I will come to you, but just before then, let me just take some comments that are coming in on our social media page. This is Barry Noah Saro Biansi said, good morning and happy new month to you and to your guests in the studio. Sincerely speaking, the federal government led by APC has collapsed the education sector in Nigeria. This is the first time that ASU strike has lasted for the past 7 months. I'm not sure you're correct there. I'm not sure. No, this is not the first time. Okay, and I said we are expecting the president to provide final solution to the strike via his nationwide broadcast speech this morning. Well, again, Dr. Mrs. Nena Olebara from Owerri. Since independence, we've been first to believe that Nigeria cannot rise above board and that our energy system cannot work and that we cannot, we cannot have quality education, as this government has continued to toy with education to our children. We have continued to lose our erudite and intellectual lecturers to other countries where their potentials are appreciated, and that our roads cannot be pothole freeze and death trap and slaughter slabs, that our electoral system will continue to be a horse. Shall we continue this way? God forbid. Let's go back to the vision and the covenant of our founding fathers, purge ourselves of evil, and rebuild this nation. And we must thank you sincerely, Dr. Mrs. Nena Olebera from Owerri. And Nigerians, and this is from Chile Edwin, said Nigerians and Nigeria has too many things to celebrate positively, looking at where we're coming from and where we are today, despite our challenges and created by the political class. But we have made tremendous progress both in human capital development and fiscal infrastructure. And Nigeria must appreciate what President Muhammadu Buhari inherited from the past administration and what he has continued, and Israel will be kind to President Muhammadu Buhari. But Nigerians must understand that Nigeria today exports talent that are making waves across the world, and that is worthy of celebration. Those who are crying wolves today have benefited from this country, but are playing the character of Oliver Twist. Congratulations to Nigeria and to our independence anniversary. Yes, we believe sincerely in Nigeria, and we're patriotic about Nigeria. But again, we're looking we're talking to the speech made by President Muhammadu Buhari today, and we're asking how reassuring are some of the comments made by the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Armed Forces of Nigeria as relates to some of the issues facing us this morning. And I'll quickly take yours. Prince Onyekachi has said, what is the impact of those fraudulent policies of President Muhammadu Buhari in the economy for the country? Most of those programs are fraudulent because one of my family members, none of my family members have benefited from any of the so-called policies. Maybe you are among the unfortunate ones. He said he has benefited. He said he has benefited from the policy. And this one, Chile, let me look at this one. Whoa, so many of them coming in now. Comrade Clinton Inekere. Good morning, Shegun. My name is Comrade Clinton from Bori. I agree completely with President Muhammadu Buhari. In fact, I rate his administration very highly when it comes to social investment scheme. In my own nuclear family, myself and some of my siblings have benefited. See what I am saying? Benefited from the Empower scheme. In fact, I used the Empower Support Fund to sole sponsor my master's degree program. And the fact that it wasn't sufficient, but it went a long way. I also benefited from 250,000 loan given to youth by the Federal Ministry of Youth Sport. I know many of my friends that got 450,000 naira COVID-19 loan, yet it did very well in this regard. And President Muhammadu Buhari was sincere. And that is your comment, Comrade Kingsley Erekere from Bori. And congratulations to you, Comrade Kingsley. But again, how many Nigerians actually know about this and how many Nigerians benefited? Comrade Mazi.
Well, let me say that maybe I'm also one of the unfortunate people. Yeah, I did apply. I think my younger brother also applied, but I hardly know anybody who but just to say also that not everybody will be able to get that fund. But beyond just receiving funds, we want to look at what is the intention of these policies. I think that it's aimed at moving Nigerians from where they are, up socially and also economically. But I want to look at it after so many years, after 2 years or 4 years or 3 years that these schemes have been on. How have you moved these people for whom these policies are actually intended? And 2019, Nigeria was ranked as the poverty capital of the world. And we hope that when you have this kind of policies, is to move the people from where they are to where, up economically. But we have hardly seen that happen. For those who took this loan for agricultural purposes, we can see with the volume and the quality of products you have in Nigeria in terms of food sufficiency and see how it has impacted negatively on it. I know somebody who took a loan to go into venture into agriculture. For one reason or the other, he could not recoup his loan. About 2 days ago, CBN has said they started to recoup the loan that they gave to these farmers. And I was saying to somebody, most of those people who took these loans for agricultural purposes will not be able to have anything to pay back because for insecurity, and then maybe flooding and some other issues. The climate, like they say, unfavorable economic climate, have not made people to be able to plow these funds into meaningful investment and also reap from it. Because at the end of the day, not only these people should benefit, but the economy will benefit. That is the reason, the purpose for these schemes. But we have hardly seen this scheme impact positively, like a prof said, in people. Because when you have disposable income, and people, when people make more money, you see it, in form of taxes. The government have more taxes, and there will still other recycled so that other people have. But I can hardly see this scheme have impacted positively in the economy of the people, in the pockets, and then also of the country. So I doubt if actually these schemes have actually met the purpose for which they are created.
Well, fantastic and well spoken there again. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Point Blank. It's a special Independence Day edition, and we're still looking at the broadcast made by President Muhammadu Buhari this morning to mark Nigeria's 62nd independence anniversary. We're looking at the correctness of some of the facts or some of the issues raised by President Muhammadu Buhari and some of the solutions he said his government has provided. And I'm speaking to some very esteemed gentlemen in the studio this morning. Sunny Dada is a spokesperson of the Civil Liberties Organization. He is with us in the studio. Olalekan Ige is a veteran journalist and a very senior one in Port Harcourt and River State. Is with us in the studio. Peter Mazi is a communication manager of the Social Action. He is also with us. And Professor Kenny Wike, we're privileged to have him as a professor of political science of the Ignatius Archer University, is also joining us online. Now, quickly, we have a comment by Barrister Henry Ekene. Barrister Henry Ekene sent his reaction to us to the Independence Day comment made by Independence Day broadcast made by President Muhammadu Buhari. And I just wanted to have a listen to what Barrister Henry Ekene has to say.
Nigeria celebrates 62nd independence anniversary today, October 1st, 2022. I think this is just political independence. And if that it indeed is actually also full political independence. But I wonder whether we really have had economic independence, social independence, and perhaps in other sectors. And how far have we fared? 62 years is a maturity age. It's a majority age. It's something, 6 decades and 2 that Nigerians are still at the infant stage, as if we aren't growing. So it's worrisome, it's disturbing. It is a question as to whether we really have matured as a country. So I think, in my view, that there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a lot of unanswered questions, particularly in the areas of the rights of citizens, the welfare of citizens, and the security of citizens, because these are the cardinal indicators of a truly democratic society. How much of the respect or the rights of citizens do state actors, the government, and of course citizens observe in relationship with one another? And then how much of the welfare of citizens have we succeeded in improving or enhancing in any way, whether by the actions of government, the policies of government, or our relationship amongst citizens, and of course the security of lives and property. To a large extent, these are actually not really in the positive, because security of lives and property in Nigeria is not impressive. The welfare of citizens level, not impressive. Respect to the rights of citizens, not impressive. So moving forward, beginning today, 1st of October 2022, and perhaps the next celebration of the anniversary of independence of this country, we would expect improvement in the areas of respect and protection of rights of citizens in all regards, particularly and more emphatically this time in this generation, focus on social and economic rights of citizens, which would have covered the areas of rights to housing, right to education, right to health, right to clean environment, right to social relations, right to employment, right to economic opportunities.
Well, that was Barrister Henry Ekene, who is the National Legal Advisor of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Now, that is his comment on the broadcast made by President Muhammadu Buhari this morning. And don't forget, we also want you to send us your comments concerning what President Muhammadu Buhari said in the broadcast. That is hardly any ward, any village in Nigeria that has not benefited from the socio-economic program put in place by the federal government. So tell us, have you benefited? A member of your family benefited in your local government area? Anyone have they benefited from the NPAR, trade money, market money, subsidized loan, and business grant or conditional cash transfer? We want you to send us a short WhatsApp note, voice note on WhatsApp. Tell us your name and send your comment via WhatsApp to this number 0905 948121. It's a special Independence Day edition of Point Blank. Now, gentlemen, this is a very critical one, and this is actually one of the big things we will be talking about. We had intended to talk about this morning, and this concern the coming election. And President Muhammadu Buhari also talked about that in the broadcast this morning. President Muhammadu Buhari said, and I'm reading what the president said this morning. He said, "Fellow Nigerians, no matter what gains we make, without a good governance system, on electing credible leaders on the basis of free, fair, credible, and transparent election, our efforts would not be enough. It is for this reason that I have resolved to bequeath a sustainable democratic culture which will remain lasting. The signing of the Electoral Act 2021, as amended with landmark provision, further assures us of a more transparent and inclusive electoral process. Having witnessed at close quarter the pains, anguish, and disappointment of being victim of an unfair electoral process, the pursuit of an electoral system and processes that guarantee electoral leaders, my citizens, remains the guiding light as I prepare to wind down our administration. The president went further to say, you will all agree that the recent election in the past 2 years in some states, notably Anambra, Ekiti, and Osun, and a few federal constituencies have shown a high degree of credibility, transparency, and freedom of choice with the people's vote actually counting. These, I promise, will be improved upon as we move towards the 2023 general election. And he said, as we begin the transition process for another democratically elected government, I want to implore all aspirants to conduct issue-based campaigns devoid of hate speeches as well as other negative and divisive tendencies. He also said, I also want to express my wish that we will see more female and youth participation in the forthcoming electoral cycle. I am sure that our teaming and energetic youth now realize that violence generally mar election and should desist from being used by politicians for this purpose. And again, this looks very comprehensive. But let us begin to analyze this comment made by President Muhammadu Buhari. He has called on aspirants to conduct issue-based campaigns devoid of hate speeches as well as other negative and divisive tendencies. Again, you're a journalist. We always say this thing, issue-based campaign. But what actually is issue-based campaign?
The issue-based campaign is to focus on what you want to do for Nigerians. What you want to do if you are elected into the State House of Assembly. What will you do if you are elected as a federal legislator? What will you do if you are elected as the president? What would you do if you are elected as a governor? I think it's to look at issues, is to look at areas that bother the people, issues of education and unemployment, provision of special social amenities, improvement in economy, agriculture, and all of that. These are issues that people should focus on. And rather,
again, I'm very sorry to call you, but because when we talk about issue-based, is it issue-based according to the politicians or issue-based according to the people?
Issue-based according to what we should be providing for the people. You are seeking office to make...
What you should be providing and what the people will need.
That is why you are aspiring for an office. You think you can become the governor of a state. It is your responsibility to know issues that bother the people. For example, in any state, you want to become the governor, you already know the issues. Is it the issue of erosion? Is it the issue of access to quality primary education? Is it the issue of access to quality healthcare? They are staring at you in your face, you understand? So you know the issues. You know what bothers the people by interacting with the people. That's why you go on campaigns. That's why you meet people. That's why you hold consultations. By the time you do all of this, you're able to know what the people really want and how you want to go about providing solutions for them. But Segun, you know, one big mistake we've always made, you know, in every electoral process is that we focus too much attention on who becomes the president of Nigeria to the exclusion of who should become the governor, who should be a member of the House of Assembly, and who should be a federal legislator. And I'm trying to use this opportunity to tell Nigerians, don't focus too much attention on who becomes the president to the exclusion of who should become the governor of your state, to the exclusion of who should become the House of Assembly member representing your constituency, and to the exclusion of those going to the National Assembly. They are all encompassing. There is no one man, no one president in Nigeria that will make Nigeria good. If you check the constitution of Nigeria, there are issues that are on the exclusive legislative list, there are issues that are on concurrent list, and there are residual lists. Let's take the issue of agriculture, for example. The largest contributor to Nigeria's GDP today is agriculture. As of today, how many states in Nigeria are actually serious with agriculture? So that you begin to understand that while it's important that we have a very good president, it is also as important as having a good president to have a good governor, to have a good member of House of Assembly, and to have a good member of the National Assembly, because it is those that are in the various assemblies that have the power to call the president, they have the power to call the governor. Come and explain to us what you've done so far. Mr. President, can you come and address the nation and tell us what you've done so far? Mr. Governor, can you come and address the state and what you've done so far? So while we are focusing on the 2023 general election, while we are looking for a very good president, also take your time. Look at a candidate that you think will become a good governor and a candidate that you think can best represent your hopes and aspirations in state and national assembly.
Well, fantastic. Again, I will come to Peter Mazi on this, because you see, when we talk about issue-based, what do we mean by issue-based? And President Muhammadu Buhari has also said that in his broadcast this morning, that the politicians must focus on issue-based. And I also recall that during the week, there was the signing of the peace agreement among politicians. Again, that's a very big one, because I don't understand why we're signing peace agreement. Are we in war? but let me just leave that. But so for you, Peter Mazi, what actually do we mean when we talk about issue-based campaigning? What do we mean, Peter Mazi?
Okay, I think that if you look at this in the light of what we've been experiencing as a run-up to the campaigns, you hear people talk about the opposition and what the opposition cannot do, and the capacity, the personalities of the opposition, their health, their personal lives, and all that. And these are things that, will not help anybody make any decision. What issue-based will therefore mean in this light is, what are you going to do in terms of education, for instance? Look at where we are today. Understand that we are in almost a recession economically. Now, based on that, what are you going to do concerning, education? In terms of economy, understand, look at the value of the naira to the dollar as it is at the moment in time. Look at inflation based on the realities on the ground. How do you hope? What are you going to do, and how do you hope to do these things? So in each area of our livelihood, social, economic, political, there are issues that should be addressed. So how do you hope to address those issues? Tell us how you want to do it, rather than tell us what the opposition cannot do, how they sleep in their beds, how their health and all those issues. Those issues are very destructive tendencies. So issue-based are, the germane things. So that tomorrow, when you are there, you won't tell us, we didn't know that it is this bad. We didn't know that it is this poor. You understand at this point in time, our production of oil, crude oil, is about 1.2 million barrels or thereabouts, as against maybe there are 2 million barrels, 2 million barrels as proposed by the budget. That's in the federal level. But in state level as well, we have issues we need to be contending with in the state level. Issues with also primary education. You go to our schools and see how our public schools, the state that they are in, is appalling. It's disheartening. So how do you hope to do it? And when do you want to start? Let's see your timetable so that, we know Nigeria will like 100 days in office. We want to see how you can progressively bring our children. A country is as developed as is education. We can't go beyond that. We can't go beyond that. And so we want to see all those things happen. And then if we see it, not just as a president or as a governor, but the party. So that you won't come and say, okay, party says differently, I'm saying differently. So we want to see all those things, documented and then presented. That is what we want to see.
Fantastic. And thank you so much, Peter Mazi. And that's the communication manager of Social Action. Now, we'll be having joining us High Chief Sarah Igbe in this discussion. And also Professor Kenny Wike is also joining us right now. Now, Professor Kenny Wike, let me quickly come to you right here, and we also appreciate you joining us. Again, when President Muhammadu Buhari in his speech this morning said, as we begin the transition program to another democratically elected government, I want to implore all aspirants to conduct issue-based campaign devoid of hate speeches, as well as other negative and divisive tendencies. Those are very well-chosen words and adjectives by President Muhammadu Buhari. He also said, I want to express my wish that we'll see more female and youth participation in the coming election cycle. And I'm sure that our teaming and energetic youth now realize that violence generally, my election and so should resist from being used by politicians for this purpose. Again, Professor Kenweke, we're still looking at election, or we're looking at election as just a one-period affair. Don't you think so? Because do we really understand that election is a process?
Yes. Let me start by saying whether we actually understand that election is a process. I don't think we do understand that election is a process. Or unlike INEC, when we finished the 2019 general election, INEC immediately announced the date for the 2023 general elections. More Nigerians were saying, it's not too early to do this. Elections, involve a lot of processes and all that. And if we understand that elections are processes and are procedures and all that, we would be putting in place certain measures not to, put Nigerians on their toes, in terms of registration, or that Nigerians suddenly, realize that it is now that they will have their PVCs. And the other day, saying about 7 million Nigerians suing INEC for not allowing them to conclude, their registration process. So if we understand actually that elections involve processes and all that, and so much procedures, and then we would do preparation early enough. It's not about announcing the date of the general election. It's about making voter registration a continuous exercise. It has not been a continuous exercise in Nigeria, and that is why, on every election cycle, Nigerians are boxed to go scrambling for registration. And at the end of the day, when you have a number of PVCs, littered all over that are unclaimed, some you find in gutters and all that. And at the end, millions of Nigerians that ought to add voices to, their destinies are cut short, because, we don't understand that elections, are processes, and involve processes, procedures, that would, begin with some kind of education on the part of the independent electoral commission, civil society organizations, governments, about the people going out at the right time and go to register when they are up to 18, or those who are not part of, or do not have cards and all that. So, but today we still have as many as that have no PVCs, or don't even know where their PVCs are, or don't even understand the import of, even those who have, don't understand the import of what it means to have a PVC. And so their understanding is limited to the extent that their PVCs are in certain pockets. For me, I don't know, Shego, my own is right in my pocket, and I will do what I wish to do with it, because as I speak to you, for me to come to Port Harcourt from my village right there in Kwerengo through Mobile, Igweche, I have to use trailer, in a country that, a community that has over 350 oil wells. So I need to have my PVC very well, and then use my thumbprint very well, and understand the import of picking ink on election day and putting against the political party and the candidate. And that is the point where we have come. When President says that Nigerians is looking up to more Nigerians, more women, more youth participate. If you look at Mr. President, he didn't force any candidate of his party on anybody. He didn't. He sat on Eagle Square, on the Eagle Square, or you sit in the Eagle Square. He never influenced. He allowed the electoral process to take the center stage. And that's why today PDP also organized theirs. And, people were allowed to do whatever they, even if probably was manipulated in terms of the thinking of people. That's politics. At the end of the day, candidates emerged through transparent, processes, even if voters, delegates were brought over and all that. But, you see, it tells you clearly that Mr. President, is not one who will want to manipulate the electoral process in favor of anyone. I'm not giving him so much kudos in this regard, but because whatever you want to do in terms of getting our electionary processes rightly, we should be able to, even as a matter of seriousness, as a leader of his party, ensure that the candidates that would emerge ordinarily at all levels will be candidates that should be able to contribute, to the growth of governance in this country. And so, well, good governance. But rather, what we have at all levels of government are people who recycle themselves on a daily basis and all that. So even when you talk about election being transparent and all that, it's the same people that are recycling themselves or recycling their children or recycling those who will remain obedient to them for life and all that, and never have their own causes, of action. Those who, we have followers in Nigeria today who have never seen through their own eyes. They only see through the eyes of their so-called political leaders because they have become visually impaired. They don't have eyes to see. It's only their leaders. And they don't have PVCs, to decide what they want to do. Their PVCs in other people's pockets. No. That's in that regard, that will not be in tandem with what Mr. President is preaching.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor Ken Wickham. We still want you to stay with us. And let me quickly welcome High Chief Sarah Igbe is also joining us. And we must thank you sincerely, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on Point Blank Special Edition this morning. Thank you so much.
Good morning. And thank you.
Now, I'm going to be taking your own view concerning what the president said on the need for us to have a very clean election. Now, I recall that you were part of a meeting yesterday of prominent Ijaw leaders looking at the need for us to have a peaceful election, and you came up with some resolutions which we'll be talking about. But quickly, I would just like to take some call before I also come back to CLO as well. Now, if you're tuning in, you're listening to a special edition of Point Blank this Saturday. And we are looking at the speech made by President Muhammadu Buhari. Of course, we've talked about what President Muhammadu Buhari said in his broadcast on Nigeria's 62nd independence anniversary concerning ASUU. We've looked at what he talked about concerning some facilities put in place by his administration to reduce poverty. And right now, we're looking at what the president said concerning election. And President said here that I also want to express my wish that there should be female youth participation in the coming election, and also said, I'm sure that our teaming and energetic youth now realize that violence generally in my election and should desist from being used by politicians. Now, again, those comments made by President Muhammadu Buhari concerning our election, how do you view such comment? Let me just take this call now. Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Point Blank.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Akanton, calling from Boro.
All right, so make it 30 seconds, please.
Okay, so I think you have explained with your guest and over each issue that Mr. President talked about this. But let me limit myself to the empowerment scheme of the federal
Well,
government.
again, we've moved away from the empowerment scheme. I apologize, Akanto. We've moved away from the empowerment scheme, and we're talking now on issues relating to election, and that's what we want us to stay on that. Again, the telephone numbers 0705079121 and 0811743121. And don't forget, you can send us your comments on WhatsApp. And on the WhatsApp, the number for the WhatsApp is 09059481021. Send us a voice note, and we will take your voice note. Let me take this one. Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us. This is Point Blank.
Good morning, Senior Shebo Ulabi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My name is Nkembili, and I'm calling you from Korea. Okay? The truth must be told. You cannot believe Mr. President, because he has said in the past that the APC will make sure they be a credible candidate that will make sure they remain in power. But what do we see at the end? So you have made so many comments. Before you know it, the Kaba will not allow you to do. If you happen to be a president alone, he's a good man, but the Kaba will not allow you to be. I don't believe this election will be free and fair, as he said, but it's only God who will make sure we get the right leader. God bless you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. But I don't know why your doubts, I don't know what your doubts are. But again, President Muhammadu Buhari has stated what he wished to see, and he also said that he was a victim of vicious elections. And let me come to His Highness, High Chief Sarah Igbe, who is with us in the studio now. Again, you had a meeting yesterday, and some of your meeting particularly dwell on this issue as it affects River State. Again, we've been talking about election is a process itself. A lot of people think when a candidate emerges, that's when election has started, but it is a long process. So let us begin to look at this issue raised by President Muhammad Buhari and how it relates to River State from your perspective.
Thank you, Shegu. The president has made his pronouncement, but before then, we have the Electoral Act, which we believe will guide the elections. And if going by the Electoral Act, what we have seen in other elections, it is very obvious that this time vote will count. Because the process of taking your fingerprint and also your visual before you vote shows that only those who are there will vote, not the era of putting numbers. Whether people are there or not, you declare numbers and say this is the vote. So we believe whether Mr. President is serious or not, if we are following the Electoral Act to the letter, particularly INEC being independent, if they are following the Electoral Act to the letter, we will get a lot of improvement. But what we are concerned is we need non-violence, non-hatred election.
Which is what the president also talked about as well.
Yeah, so we are looking at...
but again, the question is, how do we achieve that?
Yes, we achieve that through doing the right thing. Like, you see, what led us to where we are today is because the persons who are voted into power in the crookish way, when they get there, they don't carry every part of the state or country along. And they also steal the money, broad daylight stealing. People see how they spend money, people see how they use the money, and sometimes they give out the money to people who are not even related to a state. This is why people are getting worried. Everybody wants to get power by all means. And when people want to get power by all means because of what they have seen, you will see violence will come in because everybody thinks that with violence you can get that. But the Electoral Act has totally eliminated violence because even if you carry the ballot box today, if you go and stuff it, it will not work. You must be there to vote. If you're not there to vote, no way. If you say machine is not working today, they have to postpone the election for the next day for the machine to work. Except you don't want somebody to represent you in that place, then they can carry the ballot box and run away and nothing happens to that place. So I think the Electoral Act will check most of these crimes where we used to witness.
I'm very sorry to cut you short, Haichi, because you see, when we look at what is happening in River State, our electioneering experience in River State against other states, there seems to be a kind of cynicism and helplessness, particularly amongst our electorate, a sort of issues related to our election. We have this helplessness. Again, in your paper at the summit of your leaders yesterday, you also raised this issue, and that is why you were also particularly concerned that the next governor of River State must also be one that should build conscientiousness or should build a solidarity amongst even neighboring states, particularly, you mentioned particularly Bayelsa. So again, how do we begin to remove ourselves? Because you see, for me, we have this culture that just look and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. That's the way it has always been.
Well, there are a lot of intimidation that has been going on in River State. For instance, for some time now, meetings are banned in hotels. You cannot have meetings, political meetings, and you cannot meet at all. These are all intimidations. I can give an example, a typical example. People have been shouting about the Trans-Calabari, the route going to the Calabari people. Kidnapping has been going on for some time. And just recently, Asari Dokumo, the DSS, came up with a security strategy to make sure the kidnapping stopped. But you wouldn't believe last night, just 4 o'clock, the police went and arrested all the people that Asari and the DSS kept there.
But again, were they authorized by the...
But the DSS is the work of security. What do you mean by security? Internal security is part of the work of the DSS. So if DSS is doing their own work, coded work, even in the north, they deploy people to go and do coded work in the north. So if DSS is doing internal security, the kidnappers, for some time, they have been tracing them to their camp and destroying their camp. And if people are doing a good job and kidnapping has not been going on, and you suddenly police went to arrest them just to allow the kidnappers to take place, that is telling you that even the election, if you cannot go there because they'll make sure they block you, with kidnappers and all the kinds of threats. This is a kind of victimization, intimidation that is going on. But I believe strongly that this time around it will not be so, because everybody now knows that they have a right to choose who to govern.
Is that not an assumption? Because you've just raised a very salient point. Because you see,
I said, as I speak to you, about 6 of the boys who are guarding the road have been arrested by the Nigerian police.
I'm actually talking to the last comment you made that everybody knows. Because as a journalist, I've gone around speaking to people. There seems to be this feeling of I'm unconcerned.
Yes, in the past it was so. But I think this time there will be awareness. People are talking. People are telling them, look, it's your right. If you don't come out to vote now, you blame yourself. So if everybody comes out and says, look, I won't accept this, the regional groups are also grouping to advise their people. There are a lot of interest group going on. And the governor of court is saying, you don't need to meet. Whatever I decide is final. These are intimidation, but that intimidation cannot work anymore.
We will look at that comment you've given to us. But again, gentlemen, I also want us to just take it into what High Chief has said here. Because again, one of the things you raised in your paper is that we need to begin to compare the consciousness we have and the consciousness in the western part of the country, in the West. Again, is it the same? When you talk about awareness, that people are now aware, are they as aware as Nigerians in the West? Maybe Olalekan wants to speak to that.
So when you talk of consciousness, it's in varied forms, really.
Yeah.
While we continue to, agitate for a free, fair, and transparent process in 2023, I'm of the opinion that we may not be able to get the best of the candidates if political parties don't fundamentally restructure. The responsibility of a political party is to capture power. That's the number one reason. The next reason is to recruit leadership. Now, if we have political parties where one man sits down and nominates every candidate for an election, that's a fait accompli on the citizens. So if INEC is trying to evolve by going into electronic modes of transmission and all of that, political parties must also begin to go to that level of using electronic means of allowing all registered members of that political party to vote. So the idea of camping delegates in a place and telling the delegates who to vote for already limits the number of the kind of quality leadership that will be available for elections. So if we must talk about consciousness in the Western world, remember the way they do their own activities at the political party level. Everybody is given equal opportunity to aspire to any position. But in Nigeria, you have somebody who wants to aspire, and the political leader says, hey, young man, step down. We already have somebody for this position. So how will you see how you involve people now? When you don't give people the opportunity to choose their leaders, they begin to limit their consciousness. Some people even get tired and get pissed off and say, well, after all, they've already decided who will win. Is there any need for us to go and vote in the first place? So for us to have credible election, for us to have we must also find a way to force political parties to also simplify their own processes by allowing all registered members of that party to vote for candidates that represent the party in every election. That way, you begin to see that people will not get more involved when you begin to see more and more credible people representing all these political parties.
Well, fantastic. But again, Sonny, that I want to come to you. And Professor Kenny Wike is also listening to us, talking about consciousness, because High Chief Sarigwe said people are more conscious now, and we're looking at how correct is that? Are Nigerians truly conscious? Because what we have seen so far is that we have this unconcerned attitude. There's a kind of cynicism amongst many Nigerians now. Well, it's politics. Again, Sonny Dada.
Yeah, in the past, you could say, okay, we had this apathy, but in the current electoral process, that has changed. That's because I've engaged a lot of people. In fact, we saw the attitude of people in the during the CVR process, the continuous voter registration process, where everybody wanted to be registered by INEC and all of that. So the increase, even in the increase in terms of registered voters, is an indication that there is no longer a party. And that is also for a number of reasons. Number one, the challenges of poverty that we have seen today. the challenges of insecurity and all that. So it is like a reality dawning on us. And because of that, you see citizens, getting interested. They want to be part of the electoral process. But beyond that, I want us to still talk about the president's speech, where he talked about hate speech and all of that. I am happy that the president is one making that comment, because if you interrogate his democratic credentials, you will see that, as a matter of fact, why are we even signing a peace accord today? We are signing a peace accord today because of some of the roles he played in the 2011 electoral process.
The baboon and the blood.
Yes, the monkey and the baboon that will bathe in blood and all that, which led to post-election violence, and that was what led to signing of peace accord in 2015. So I am happy that the president is the one that is coming out to denounce this, and I'm also happy that he talks about inclusivity, talking about youth and women participation, because over time his democratic credential does not also support that, even though he signed the Not Too Young to Run bill. But if you recall, after signing, he told the youths not to contest until after he's no longer going to be on the ballot. Remember the popular statement that his wife belongs to the kitchen. So if the president is now coming out to talk about inclusivity in the electoral process, I think that's a good thing. And again, the electoral process, the Electoral Act, he calls it as amended 2021. That is not an amended act. It's a new law entirely. So it's the Electoral Act 2022. So if you look at the Electoral Act and the provisions, such as the electronic transmission of results and the use of BVAS machine, all of these, have given, hope to citizens that there could be, the process this time around could be very fine. And when you look at the three last elections that INEC has conducted, the Anambra, Ekiti, and Osun, you will see that one is an improvement upon the other one. For instance, the Anambra election was a very good improvement compared to the 2019 election. Then by the time we saw Ekiti, we noticed that Ekiti was even far better, even though we had challenges with vote buying and all of that.
I'm very sorry. You've just raised a very point I want to raise there, because when President Muhammadu Buhari was saying that the elections that we've conducted so far seems very... the question I want to ask is, how many electoral offenders have we seen punished? Because that again would have helped. And there is a call for a special court to try electoral offenses, which we have now seen done again. So what are the facts? What are the parameters to say to us that, yes, what we saw in Ekiti, Anambra, or Osun went very, very well, when there were cases, reported cases of vote buying, and nobody was prosecuted? I'll be coming to you there, Peter Mazi. But quickly, let me come to Prof. Prof, again, if you want to weigh in on this particular one. Hello, Prof. Can you hear us? All right, I think we'll come back to Prof. But yes.
Hello. Yes.
Hello, Prof. Okay, we're looking at the issue of ensuring that we have a smooth election. Of course, President Muhammadu Buhari has made known his desire, and also the issue of inclusivity of everyone in this coming election. But again, we are saying, what are the structures we put in place? We've not seen prosecution of electoral offenders. We do not have a special court to deal with issues relating to election. How sincere are we really?
Shego, sometimes if you are not close, you may not see those who have been prosecuted. As far back as 2019 rerun and all that, even in this state, I've seen people who became suspects that were so charged to court here in these very states. The only thing is that probably we don't have the statistics, INEC should be able to have that shared with the public, after each election and all that, those who have been prosecuted, so that at least that will serve as a deterrent, to others. Again, we may say clearly that the number of people being prosecuted may not be as
now we're talking
expected.
about those prosecuted for electoral offenses.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. I said the number of persons being prosecuted after each election and all that may not be available to us. I know it may not be available to the public. What I'm saying is that INEC has that responsibility, and the security agencies also have that responsibility in letting us know after each election, so that people will know that, yes, there are some people who were caught in the act and were being prosecuted, and then we should be able to see the number of persons who are prosecuted finally, and who were either served or were fined or served some sentences and all that. We should be able to know that, and I think that that is not in public domain, and that is why it appears it's not also something as a deterrent, to others. So, but again, why we want to say that? Because political parties and those who are in power within the corridors of power, of course, when their followers get involved one way or the other, they show them the other door to go away and order without being punished. And so that is what is also happening. But until security agencies take themselves away from the crimes of electioneering, we can't get offenders actually punished, during elections.
All right, fantastic. Let me come to Peter Mazi here. And Peter Mazi again, Prof said, well, perhaps some people are being prosecuted, but they're not made public. Again, do you agree?
Well, you will not know, like we will not know if we have people who are being persecuted if we don't see them. Some of these offenses are committed in the public, and when they happen, we hear reports about them. And civil society have this documentation of these infractions during elections, and so when it's done in secret, the idea is that so that we can make this, if there's retribution, it serves as a deterrent for those who want to go into them. We all know that we have evidences that some persons are recruited for the purpose of these elections, either to mar it or to tweak it in a way that will favor them. And then these persons, we see them after each election's coming. So if they do it in one election and they see they are doing it in the next election, it means that somehow, some way or the other, you have been let loose, even if you are arrested. So we want to see these people who have been arrested, want to know the number that are arrested, want to know the number that are prosecuted, those that have been done conclusively, or those that are still in court, so that those who want to go into them will know that, yes, indeed, and give some of us who want to go out there to vote the confidence that, yes, we are protected. Because if we keep hearing this kind of election, and malpractice election violence each time it happens, and then we don't see people that are being prosecuted, it gives us the impression that nothing is being done. So we want to see these things in the open. Yeah, fantastic. Again, it's a very valid point there. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Point Blank, and we have about 15 minutes more on the show. It's a special edition on Independence Day, and we're looking at a whole lot of issues. President Muhammad Buhari said so much in this Independence Day broadcast earlier this morning. We're looking at that vis-a-vis what is going on in Rivers State, and I must sincerely thank all my guests in the studio. Hi, Chief Saragbe with us. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in this morning to speak to us. And so much issue to talk about, because President Muhammad Buhari talked about the issue in the Niger Delta and how he has dealt with the insecurity. We will look at that, and we'll look at how true that is. Somebody that is already smiling. Olale Koinge is a senior journalist in Port Harcourt. And Olale Koinge, thank you so much for staying with us. Sonny Dada is the spokesperson of the CLO, Civil Liberties Organization. And Peter Mazi is the communication manager of Social Action. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to the studio. Again, the issue of inclusiveness is a very critical one, and President Muhammad Buhari said we want to see more youth participate, we want to see more women participate. We have the 35% affirmative action, but how many states? Here in local government area, we seems to have relegated the role of deputy for women. And that's what you see. In every local government, what you see is who said, anyway, so again, how serious are we, starting from River State, to see more women and youth participation? And as related by President Muhammad Buhari, I will just take some calls. I will just take some telephone calls here now, so that we can all put all of these things in the right perspective. Again, you want to join us? The numbers 07050791021 and 08117431021, and also you can send us a voice comment on WhatsApp on 09059480021. And Dr. Minazi Jackson is joining us. Good morning, Dr. Minazi Jackson.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, panelists in this studio. Yes, I think this topic is important. Nigeria Independence Day celebration. Do we really need to celebrate? Do we have the cost to celebrate? How well have Nigerians fared, both under the previous and current administration? what is our GDP? What is the social content of the government of the day? These are issues that bother some of us. We cannot claim to be politically independent when we are not economically independent. For instance, Mr. President raised the issue of Niger Delta. They should stop playing on the intelligence of Niger Delta people. We are not fools. For crying out loud, 80% of Niger Delta remains a squalor. Our people are dying daily out of environmental polluted situation where they live in. How have we been able to spend the 13% derivation? What has been the development pattern of this government as regards Niger Delta? Look at NDDC, for instance. An illegal conscript leadership has been saddled on NDDC for how many, close to 2 years now. And then we are running an illegal system and you want to placate us with an independent day celebration. What kind of thing is that?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Manasseh Jackson. We quite appreciate those comments you've made. And since Dr. Manasseh Jackson has taken us to the arena of the Niger Delta region, let me just quickly state what President Muhammadu Buhari said in his speech. And President Muhammadu Buhari was talking about dealing with the issue of insecurity. And he has said through the, well, I'm rephrasing now, actually, I'll get to, okay, fantastic. He said, in order to address insecurity, we worked methodologically in reducing insurgency in the northeast, militancy in the Niger Delta, ethnic and religious tension in some section of Nigeria, along with other problems threatening our country. Hi, Chief, you would know this better. When President Muhammadu Buhari is claiming the victory for putting an end to militancy in the Niger Delta, how correct? Let's look at the correctness of that.
Well, I don't know what measures Mr. President has used to arrest the insurgency in the Niger Delta. It's not too correct that he did that. I think the peace in Niger Delta came from the leadership of Niger Delta, who feels that it is not wise for us to be killing ourselves. Not Mr. President. He didn't do anything. Even the 16-point agenda we presented to him after we calmed the youths, only 1 or 1.5 has been executed. But we still believe that if we continue to fight and kill ourselves, in addition to what we are suffering today in the region, because the oil and gas production has affected us in different ways. Our environment has been polluted, our ecosystem has been destroyed, our traditional occupation destroyed, we don't have fish anymore, we cannot farm, and that itself is a bigger punishment. So if we begin to kill ourselves, we may not go anywhere. So we have to talk to our boys to see this, not Mr. President. Mr. President never contributed any to this in this direction. I can say this emphatically because I know I'm involved.
So you're saying the security claim by President in ending militancy in the United States is actually not?
I stand to be corrected. I don't see how we did that because I don't know the method he used to calm security. Even the amnesty itself is having the problem. The amnesty that was set up by Yar'Adua is not even having the right direction. There are a lot of issues there. So I don't know how he can claim that he calmed the Niger Delta. We on our own as leaders felt it's not wise for us to continue the way others are doing, and not Mr. President.
Fantastic. I still want gentlemen, I want us to relate to that. But again, the one quick one that we also wanted to talk about, and also maybe Olale Koigi may also want to talk about that, is President Muhammadu Buhari in the address this morning said federal government is already expanding ports operations to ensure that they provide opportunity for the growth of the Nigerian economy. And again, I'm asking which of the port operation? We have 2 major ports in Port Harcourt. We have the Port Harcourt port and the Onne port. I mean, the road to even the Onne port here. Oh, I don't want to talk about that.
Well, I think expansion, it may be right.
Maybe the Tinkan Island and the Apapa port.
Tinkan is a roll off. You have the Apapa port, you have the Lekki Deep Sea port also coming on stream.
But what about the port in the western ports?
We are the eastern port.
The eastern port, rather.
At the moment, you wouldn't say there has not been increased cabotage, at the Onne port. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And the best way for you to know, I have an office at Igrita, and I know the number of trailers I count per day heading out of Igrita, heading the way of the eastern states. So it gives you an idea as to how much cabotage has been coming to Onne. But in terms of facilities, in terms of infrastructure heading the way of Onne, I think that's a huge challenge. And you're talking about the east-west road, particularly from LMA Junction to Onne, which is in terrible state. And of course, you can count the number of hours that people spend on that road. But in fairness, there has been increased cabotage at the Onne. But I think now you still have a port at Warri. Remember, yes, there's a port at Warri. We need to look at the port in Warri. We need to find out how we can heavily decongest what goes the way of Lagos. And unfortunately, it is left for the businessman to determine which port he wants. You won't force a businessman to head to the port he does not want. So you need to be able to provide a lot of incentives to ensure that all of these ports are working. There's a port, remember, in Calabar too. Calabar has a port. So we need to begin to look at facilities. What kind of incentives are you going to give to importers who can take their goods through this route? And remember too, in importation, when you bring a ship into Nigeria, you're also expected to be able to take something out of this country so that that can also help to reduce the amount of money you are going to be paying for freight. So we need to encapsulate all of this into maybe a workable document. The Ibom Deep Sea Port is also trying to come on stream. Bonny Deep Sea Port will also probably come on stream in the future. So you look at all of this, then it means that the federal government will need to do more in terms of incentives, in terms of providing facilities in and around this port to enable them function optimally.
And that's very critical. Let me come to Sanida on that again. So would you also agree with President Muhammad Buhari that the drive on the ports to improve the economy, he said, is already expanding port operations to ensure that they provide opportunities for the growth of the Nigerian economy? I am looking at it from the situation in Rivers State.
I totally disagree with the president. I don't know the basis or the parameters that he used to claim that he contributed to the relative peace we enjoy in the Niger Delta. As a matter of fact, when this president came on board, he added tension to the situation in the Niger Delta with his utterances. Remember when he described the Niger Delta as 5%? That was highly insensitive. And it was when this president came on board, Olaliko talked about the increased cabotage. I want to ask, what was the number of cabotage when Jonathan was president, when Yar'Adua was president, compared to the number of cabotage when we have President Muhammad Buhari? Because virtually, structurally, and it was done structurally, all the ports in the Niger Delta were left prostrate. And everything, we saw how everything moved to Lagos, and that's why we are having the challenge with the Apapa port, today. So this president cannot claim what he did not do, So if he's talking about increased port operation, perhaps maybe now he wants to look at, the ports in the Niger Delta, So from now we'll begin to look at policies, in terms of policy direction, how maybe, because they have been talking about port decongestion and all of that, maybe now they want to begin to look at the ports, in the Niger Delta. But to claim that he contributed to the relative peace we enjoy in the Niger Delta, I want to say that that's not correct. As a matter of fact, the president should also be blamed for the increase in profile business in the Niger Delta. Yes, because at the point, almost all the jobs, almost all the port-related jobs left, the Niger Delta, and youths, found themselves in these profile business we are talking about.
Well, fantastic. We just have about 4 minutes. And
let me react to this.
Yes, Chief. Ports. The ports.
At least I spent 20 years in the shipping industry.
Okay.
You see, the Eastern ports have been demarketed that there are crimes here. And so vessels find it difficult to come, and insurance also went up because they look at this Eastern port as very difficult areas where kidnappers, all kinds of crimes can take place. They coupled that with Gulf of the crisis in the Gulf of Guinea and capitalized that Eastern ports are the worst ports. That is why most vessels refuse to come. I used to be an importer. If I import, I said I want my goods to be in Port Harcourt port. But they will tell you they can't go to Port Harcourt port. The vessels cannot go to Port Harcourt port because of insecurity, except you pay higher freight. So the governor of Rivers State, or the government of Rivers State, or the other states in the Niger Delta, if there is synergy amongst them, they have to clear this in the international media that, look, our ports are safe. They are not doing that because there is no synergy between the governors here in the Niger Delta. And I don't think they know what they are doing in terms of economy. If they know what they are doing and they know what they're supposed to gain, if the ports are working, in terms of employment, in terms of revenue, if they know that they will realize so much, they would have come together as a team and market these ports and make sure they have meetings with the customs, have meetings with the importers, have meetings with the Shippers Council, and tell the world that, look, our ports are safe. There is no kidnapping here, there is no piracy here, the ports can be working well. In the past, Port Harcourt Port was busy. Warri Port was busy. I worked in Warri Port, I worked in Port Harcourt Port, I worked in Lagos Port. Lagos, I worked at Papa Port, I worked in Tikimama Port. And these ports were very busy here. And we had all the sort of companies, all the major companies were here. They meet Palm Line, ED Line, all kinds of vessels were all coming here. Ubako, Warren, we are all busy. But because the port has been demarketed, and our government is not doing enough, rather than doing how it will save them, they are busy politicking, quarreling, fighting themselves.
Chief, I'm just going to beg your pardon because we have less than 5 minutes to wrap up the show, and we just need to take one or two calls. We come to Comrade Peter Martin, but quickly, let me just take some comments on this issue. Of course, it's been an extended edition of Point Blank this Saturday. It is Independence Day edition, and we'll be looking at the speech made by President Muhammadu Buhari in his Independence Day broadcast to celebrate Nigeria's 62nd independence anniversary. Looking at the critical issue from the issue of ASUU to the issue of poverty reduction, and we're looking at what he said concerning maintaining the peace in the Niger Delta region and also expanding the economy of the country through ports. Let's take this comment now coming in. Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, Comrade Shogun. Let me greet you one more time for this opportunity.
Okay,
I just want to make small comments on the increased President Buhari's claim on increased activity on port operations. I think he is very correct. Now, even if you want to look at it from the eastern ports, there is increased cabotage, as Olalike has said, in the main port, in the Onne port, and even in Warri port. For Calabar, I don't really know. Now, you will understand that at some point this year, last year, even the highest volume of ships came to the Onne port. Ships have been coming to the Port Harcourt ports, and I've been a bit close to the executive director operations, so I know the increase in the activities. Now, let me also to the line of High Chief Saraibe. There is a nexus between port activity and the investment industrialization of a zone. We can see that the governors are not doing anything deliberate to industrialize Port Harcourt or River State. That is why you also know that it affects the operations of the activity of the port. Now, there is also the based commissions that was supposed to be a think tank apparatus to connect the South governors. Now, what do? Since the inception of this administration, they are not connecting, they are not meeting, they are working at cross purpose. Beyond that, some state governors have been taking it as a project to be able to isolate the state from the federal. Here in River State, the governor told the traditional rulers not to visit Abuja. Now, Sheku, you may not know the implication of, but let me make one statement. The resource allocation play field is never even. There is always a contestation between what is available and those scrambling for it. So sometimes they may not necessarily look at morality of who produces what. It is your own duty. It is your obligation to go and tell the person, you are sharing this thing. You have not given me. The river population has been debarred from that.
Thank you so much.
And the says as a politics, even in the Empower and the school feeding, it was denied until people came and began to admit that the state government provided the manpower for which we distributed all those things.
Thank you so much.
These are some of the issues we are having. There are problems and there are room for expansion. You also know that other ports are being connected to rail lines to decongest them. There are dry ports springing up here and there.
So his claim is perfectly correct.
Well, thank you so much. And these issues we'll be looking at elaborately in some other editions of Point Blank. But again, we're wrapping up now. We've gone past our time. So I'm just going to allow the gentlemen in the studio a minute each. And maybe Chief Sarigbe might also speak on the issue you raised in your presentation at the January meeting, where you said the next governor of Rivers State must be that should be able to build friendship with Bayelsa State, because you said this is quite important, and I'm going to give opportunity to that. But again, let me just quickly take on Professor Ken Wike. Professor Ken Wike, just your parting words.
Yeah, for me, yes, the Niger Delta particularly is in a split state, even while all the major resources have been taken to other places, and including the sons and daughters of Niger Delta are also enjoying them at the expense of the people who ought to enjoy them. Again, that we have derivation, 62 years down the ladder, some communities that produce oil cannot access Port Harcourt, including me from Ibuichi as I speak to you. And while I have over 350 oil wells, and yet we talk about derivation. If the oil wells in my place are ceded to Abia or probably the state will go to court, but they won't bother to find out how Umebulu, Ikwerengwo, Ibuichi roads are to Eleme Johnson. So for me, election is coming, and so we should understand import of using our PVCs.
Well, thank you so much, Prof.
Hashtag my PVC is in my pocket, and I will do whatever I want to do with it.
Thank you so much, Prof. And quite appreciate it. And Peter Marcy, your parting shot.
Okay, while we discuss the issue of the port, I want to, I have a worry there, because we have some of this port congested because a lot of vessels coming in, and then the logistics in handling them is a problem. But then we have trade deficit. That is because we hardly do any imports. And so we can't be celebrating infrastructure in the ports when we have more goods, much more good coming in than we can do outside. We talk about one of the reasons why our dollar, the naira is falling in the face of dollar against the dollar. It's because we hardly do any export. So we want to see policies, deliberate policies that will encourage exports. And that is one way that we can also grow the economy. So I think that's what we look at as a government.
And thank you so much, Peter Marcy, the Communication Manager, Social Action. Lale Koige, yes, your parting shot before I come to High Chief Sarigbe.
Well, I think it's not to give up hope on Nigeria. And the best way to do that is to ensure that you vote in 2023. As flawed as the process may have been, now we have people who are candidates of various political parties. Don't vote along religious, ethnic, friendship lines and all of that. It won't help us. It has never helped us. Just go out, in 2023. Keep your PVC ready. Keep it very well and ensure that you come out that they vote any candidate of your choice, because it's very important. A lot of us think that it's not my business who becomes a governor, House of Assembly member, president. But when the policies are bad, you become affected. So their policies will surely and definitely
and thank you so much
indeed. It's better to come out.
Thank you so much indeed, Olale Koige. And to High Chief Sarigbe, yes, so again, your parting shot, and again, the need for us to have that next governor that will build ties across, yeah.
Well, first of all, let me encourage my Rivers people to vote for the best, not party line. We look at the candidates and look at the candidate that can really address our problem. A candidate we can approach, a candidate we can talk with. When we do that, I think we can go a long way. Then on the issue of the next governor coming, Bayelsa and Rivers State are the same. They are the same one family. I don't see the difference between Bayelsa and Rivers State. Let them borrow a leaf from the West, particularly the Niger Delta states. The Edo and Delta, they still have that relationship. They keep that relationship. Akwa Ibom and Cross River still keep that relationship. But here, there's no relationship. They're not the same family. We are the same. Those who created River State, majority of them are from Bayelsa. Those who even fought the battle as a Boro team, and as a Boro team, most of them are Bayelsa, except Okubayi, who is from Buguma. The rest are Bayelsa people. They all fought for the creation of this state. And from this state, we have Bayelsa. So we are the same father, the same mother. We created this state for development purposes. So I want them to see themselves as one. The governor of Bayelsa and River State should be working together in synergy. That is one part. On the second part, there is no relationship between the Niger Delta, which is very bad. We are having all kinds of agitation. If today Nigeria breaks up, Niger Delta will
No,
suffer.
Nigeria will not break up.
I said if we break up, everybody's going, saying we want to go. If everybody wants to go and say, okay, by Niger Delta go, we will suffer. There is no flight link between the Niger Delta states. There is no common market within the Niger Delta state. There is no railway within the Niger. The only thing they have, road. The road is also very bad. And the governors are keeping quiet. So I think the government should be able to synergize. Even the NGDC that they're supposed to supervise, they are not meeting to supervise the NGDC. So NGDC is not even doing what they're supposed to do because the governors are not there to guide them. So the governor that is coming must also be an inclusive government. A government that will spread projects across the state, not a local government.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. His Highness Chief Anab Saraigbe. And Sonny Dada, maybe just 1 minute because my guy at the top is saying we need to round up.
Yes, my call is to citizens. Excuse me, we should take advantage of the electoral process and ensure that we go back to INEC and reclaim our PVCs, excuse me, because 2023 is a very crucial year. Nigeria is now at the point where if we make any mistake in 2023, we may not be able to predict the outcome. And I've also realized that there is so much focus on the presidency. We should decentralize our focus and be interested in who becomes the governor of the state, because the first development you get will come from the state. So please, 2023 is a very, very crucial year. It is not a year that we must vote along religious or ethnic lines. We know the credentials of the people that have emerged so far, and let us see those who have the capacity to deliver democratic dividends to us.
And fantastic. Thank you so much, Sonny Dada, the spokesperson of the Civil Liberties Organization. And again, Super FM will be beginning a special show that will be on politics only, and we'll be doing that. And that will be an opportunity for us to talk deeply into some of the things we've looked at this morning. But it has been a special edition of Point Blank, Nigeria's independence anniversary, 62nd independence anniversary, analyzing the Independence Day broadcast of President Muhammadu Buhari, looking at the issues raised by the president and also some of the comments made by President Muhammadu Buhari on his achievements. And we're looking at the factualness, on the correctness of some of these pronouncements made by President Muhammadu Buhari. Again, I must sincerely thank everyone. Professor Ken Nweke, a professor of politics at Ignatius Aju University, thank you so much. His Highness, High Chief Saraigbe, thank you so much, sir, for coming to the studio. Olalekan Iga, senior journalist in Port Harcourt and a veteran public commentator. Thank you so much, sir, for coming to the studio. Peter Marzi, communication manager, social action. Thank you so much for coming to the studio. And Sonny Dada, spokesperson for the Civil Liberties Organization. Thank you so much. And also a big thanks to those who contributed and joining us by sending text. My name is Segun Olabi. Stay on Super FM. Good morning.